The objective is to have the business make money.
When the strategy is ready, the creative will present itself.
I've had a lot of fights about it.
You've been in fights?
Yeah.
Who you been fighting? Okay. What's 10 plus 9? Stay Sharp, episode 21. I'm Jordan Ray, and joining me is my other half, Rashad Tyler. We are the duo behind Raire Label that also produces this podcast and supports fly brands with strategy and implementation. You're watching this to go to school on or just observe our experiences. And if you like what you see, make sure you subscribe and totally hit us up to help with your projects that you're working on. Happy holidays, everyone. I feel like I'm dressed like Santa. Ho, 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 Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Mrs. Claus?
No.
I feel because I'm
none of the above.
The red and the white.
I mean, the colors don't make you the character, yo.
Yeah, I guess knowing that.
You know what time it is.
Yeah, what time of the year it is.
Feels like a costume.
Yeah, like
reason.
This is the sleigh. We're sitting on the sleigh.
That's deep.
It's got my sleigh bells.
Your imagination's insane.
But happy holidays. And wherever you are, wherever you're watching from, thank you for joining us. We hope that you are well and enjoying your time, finding some time to yourself, whatever it looks like for you. But we're sending our love.
Yeah.
And we have a cookie.
All right. So first of all, like, here's the cookie. Right.
I love these cookies.
Oh, let me grab
the soft cookies.
Yeah.
You don't like these?
I mean, I'm gonna eat whatever cookie comes across my, across the table for me. But
so festive.
Let's see how it goes.
Have you had this kind of cookie before? I don't think he's had one of these cookies before.
I mean, I have a real thing with chocolate chip cookies across the country. Just like I remember a long time ago, I was trying to find like the best burger in America based on my travel. And
yeah, run that list.
I kind of forgot it now because it's been a long time, but I had it categorized by the level of burger. So you have like a fast food burger, you have like a gourmet burger, you know what I mean? So like I was trying to really sort it so that it was useful. Now it's been done at a high level now. I think like Trill Burger is now like, winning competitions and all the rest of that. Yeah, we definitely gotta go.
Drive to Houston all for that. All right, got my tea in hand.
Now I'm eating the whole thing.
I didn't check in with you though. How are you? How are you feeling? You don't have to eat the whole cookie.
No, I'm thinking. And I kind of want to eat the whole cookie because I like cookies.
Because it's good.
I don't know about that. I mean, it's not bad. It's actually, it's kind of good. But I mean, you know how good that chocolate chip cookie is from District Donuts? Do you have any idea?
I do know. Because you go get one every day, and when you walk in the door, they ask, would you like it heated up?
The snitch, yo, is insane.
And then one day, you got 3 of them.
But you got no issue coming off the information.
No, this is the platform that we come off of information on. Right? We supposed
Unsolicited, huh?
We got to take everyone on this journey with us like they spending time with us. That's the point. So chocolate chip cookies is his go-to thing. So when I introduce a festive holiday cookie, he like,
No, don't make this a snob reaction to this holiday cookie, yo.
You were very snobbish, hesitantness. You had a lot of that going on.
No, I mean, I'm a black man from the South. This is like the equivalent of like pumpkin pie. And if you're not from this part of the world, like that joke is over your head. But sweet potato pie, pecan pie,
Chocolate
pecan
chip
pie,
cookies.
however you think about that. Nah, I ain't finna make the chocolate chip cookies is just like that's
not in
staple.
that category,
Yeah.
but Black men from the South only eat chocolate chip cookies.
No, I'm saying like in the comparison between cookies and pies, like that kind of cookie ain't really something that we checking for in the same way that we ain't checking for a pumpkin pie, but we'll eat it.
The way I've always broke down food and their categories is that it's all the same.
Ooh.
It really is. And I want to be careful. I'm being very disclaimer. I'm being very general right now.
You are.
But I approach things like that sort of how I approach Gatorade. Like Gatorade, all the flavors are the same. They're all the same except for the red. Never drink the red. Hate the red. But Gatorade, I'm like, the flavors are all the same. So when it comes to cookies, unless you just do not like a certain ingredient, like I do not like raisins. I don't want a oatmeal raisin cookie. The only oatmeal raisin cookie that I was ever going to eat was my great grandmother's. And, you know, that's that. But everything else, I'm like,
trash.
Cookies, they all taste the same. Like pies, they all taste the same. And if you just don't like bananas, I can understand why you don't like banana cream pie.
Jesus, your category lumping is really...
It's general. I'm
Yeah.
not perfect with it. I'm not I'm not a stickler necessarily, but roundabout, I'm like, a cookie is a cookie. Is a cookie.
I respect
Some of them have icing, some of them have chocolate chips, and some of them have, peanut butter, and some of them have sprinkles. Like they're cookies.
Not rolling.
All right, cool. So hope you had all of your holiday cookies. If not, eat a couple more. Eat some for me. Eat some chocolate chip for him for sure. Our topic today, we are comparing business strategy and brand identity, discussing the two, giving y'all some advice on how we approach them, what we think some misconceptions are, how we think you should possibly think about them. So totally putting some of our opinions on you all, but starting with just setting us up a little bit more. Brand strategy and business strategy are different. Brand strategy and brand identity are different.
Yes.
Brand identity and brand guidelines are different. There's all of these layers. And as we go through this conversation, I definitely want to encourage anyone who is wanting to know more about this particular conversation or building your own business strategy, designing your own brand identity, or working with someone to do that, that you educate yourself on what it is and what the difference is and what comes before the other.
Yeah.
So you take it away with business strategy. I believe that comes before you start a brand identity.
Yeah, you don't know what the hell you're doing. Like why your company or your organization or your brand should exist, what your unfair advantage is. Like, you have to have some business strategy before you even begin to assemble a team to execute things against your vision. But it's interesting how many people, especially like first time, even second or third time entrepreneurs who might call themselves serial entrepreneurs, I've had some success and a lot of losses because I'm a creative. And leading with the creative is extremely dangerous because you won't necessarily have any business fundamentals or business basics or business advantages in order to give yourself a chance to actually make any money.
My eyes are big because dangerous is a really great word to describe that. If you aren't sure what your strategy is and your business strategy more specifically, doing anything creative is going to, going to hurt you because you're doing the creative and you don't understand why.
Yeah. And
there's a time to create because something inspires you and something prompts you to freely create whatever that is. And then there's a time to create because you've done the research to do so.
Yeah. We talked about Thirsty on the last episode, and I had a business strategy overall for the company, right? You're oftentimes dealing in the micro, so it's not the most important and critical thing because of our kind of role delegations. But come on, it really had no chance of making any money. And knowing that going in, you go, well, why are we doing it? And so I never would have gotten on board if I didn't have a reason for it being a part of our rollout, because it's a part of our business strategy. We need eyeballs. We need awareness. What's the cost of like getting us in front of people?
I want to back up real quick, because if you haven't watched, I believe it was episode 19 where we talked about an event that we coined as our signature event when we started the company as a when we started Raire Label, we started as an event production company. So go back and definitely watch that if you're not sure.
19 or 20? 20.
It was definitely episode 19. Oh, I'm sorry, 20. Okay, thank y'all. Episode 20. The idea I think that you're trying to share is that particular event product was a marketing exercise for our company as we started. So you knew that was part of the strategy, was this set of events is going to help us generate awareness, you know, get fans for our company that will eventually grow to be a lot of other stuff.
Gather contacts, one-to-ones, all the rest of that. I mean, even when you're watching us here and what this is a part of our business strategy, right? We're not on here just because we want to just shoot content because of vanity or some other love affair with being on YouTube or something like that. That's just not how.
This ain't that.
Yeah. And no offense to anybody who is creative, who leads with that. I'm saying, like, if you are running a business, the objective is to have the business make money, right? So if it's going to make money, the question is, what do you need to do from action, operating, labor, you know?
Yeah. So what do you think about
drive it along? Go ahead.
Stories where you hear other people talk about they started to just make content. They were like, I just really love to do this sort of video content, or I really got into the TikTok trends, or maybe it's something written. It's a blog or a newsletter. What do you think about those stories? And then then they started to realize after that, oh, I can now reverse engineer my strategy based on something that I've already started. You know, that's not a lot of times how you approach things, but it's not to say that it doesn't ever work out.
I mean, it rarely works out. It's crazy how many times like those stories kind of set the tone for what and how.
I disagree. I think
those are the stories that get the most play because they're the stories that people digest the easiest.
Okay.
But what happens overall is they're able to, the trick for success as a content creator, music maker, dancer, anything, is doing a lot of it. And the best way to find people doing a lot of it is them actually giving a shit about it, like caring to do it, right? So you watch the love affair of somebody doing the content, showing up week after week, day after day, doing it over and over again. That's why those stories pick up the most steam. But the underlying truth is they just did it a lot. They got good at it and they released a lot. Yeah. So if they had a business idea or business plan, and then they decided to execute a lot of content against that, then they're probably going to get the same result. Yeah. The learning curve is still going to be there. The adoption curve is still going to be there. There's no way to argue the fact that you only win in the content space by doing content. And the people who probably do the most content are the people who like to do it, because those are the people who, again, are incentivized mostly because their heart is in it. And that translates to people adopting.
I digress. Is there any, I guess, brand strategy blind spots that people have that you have seen in action and that's something you warn people against? I know you consult a lot.
So brand strategy blind spots or like business strategy?
Business strategy, pardon. Yeah.
It could be either or both. We can kind of tackle the both of them. But I think knowing what a runway should look like, how much capital, like what's your strategy for?
What's your burn rate?
Yeah, like how much money are you spending and how quickly? You know, we have a burn rate per month and we have an income per month. And your burn rate, how much money you spend, should not exceed your income. But if you are in a business that is pre-revenue, meaning it's not making any money, and you got $20,000 to put into that business before it runs out of capital, you need to know how far that 20 is going to take you.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have an idea of that, you're going to be sunk.
Yeah.
More importantly, there are people that jump out on things out of like passion, and they just like, yo, I want to, you know, I had this dream, right? And I want to kind of, all right, go figure out what losing looks like. Figure out all of the ways that you can lose and figure out how to protect against that. And that's the part about blind, like a way to figure out how to find your own blind spots.
Yeah.
But specifically, it is really being able to understand how much money you have, how much time you have, and how much of it can you exert before you're at zero, and kind of give the appropriate pace to it.
That makes me think about planning and the amount of checkdowns that you got to go through.
Correct.
What all can go wrong. Try to ask yourself at any given time what could go wrong and how I'm going to respond to that. Right? Like that's how
and be anxious to add to that list.
Yeah.
Because the further you go along, the smarter you get, right? And there's so much feedback that comes from doing. You should probably find yourself most of your doing doesn't need to be in front of the camera, doesn't need to be in front of people, right? You don't need to learn on the job, right? You need to make sure that everything is pointed towards a result, which is a very different thing. But I think one of the books that I think about that helps everyone with this, and if you read it already, you know, great, revisit it if you don't mind. I think it'll be a favor that all of us would benefit from by spending collective time discussing after the fact. But Good to Great by Jim Collins is a book that talks about experimenting in a way that's easy for you to get the strategies that big corporations who've won for a long time, like how they do it. And really
implement it.
Yeah, you can implement the style of thinking, because if you were doing what we're doing, right? And you are, in terms of like even this podcast, this event, like there is a dollar amount associated with producing every episode. Well, how many episodes can you produce before you go broke? Okay. How did you come up with the cost per episode? How do you shrink that cost? Because you shrink the cost, then you can get more out, right? So it's just like basics of that. And knowing that, all right, you're not going to be good right out the gate. You're not going to get viral right out the gate, right? What are the things that are going to have to happen over time for you to manage from an expectation standpoint and from a resource standpoint that's going to give you a chance to win? Because if you run out of steam, that's why I think there's a great stat that's useful to button this point up. If you produce 20 podcasts, you're in the upper 1% of all podcast people, or all podcasts generated.
That's crazy. 1%?
1%. So most people don't make it past 20. And I think the number of how many is lower, even lower than that, but like making it past 20 is like, oh.
Yeah.
21's, you know, like we've heard 21's, you know, starts a habit, this kind of thing. Stop.
What's 10 plus 9? Malcolm.
That's funny. Yo.
Just reminded us or put us on that video, and I completely, it's like I watched something brand new for the first time anyways.
That's
21,
right.
21.
No,
I think
you got to put yourself in a spot where you can actually win.
Yeah, I know, especially with strategy, you have to commit. Strategy is such a long-term game, and I am working to get better. You eating this cookie? We got plenty. We got a whole pack. Got plenty more.
I ain't messing with that cookie after this.
He got a little bite. Look, this is how much he got left. And he talking about he not gonna eat it. I was
unsolicited, just giving up.
I was saying that I'm working on getting better at strategy all the time, because it is such a long game, and you're signing yourself up to do things over the course of however long that is, right? It might be 6 months, it might be 12 months, 24, 36 months, a few like 5 or 10 year game plans. And I am not able, my muscles right now can't really plan that far in advance or strategize that far in advance. I can't see that far in advance. And we talk about this all the time, or you mention this all the time. I'm such in the micro. I'm very hands-on with the day-to-day, the details. And that's my strong suit. So kind of on the flip side, or just on the other hand, with brand identity, we refer to it as visual identity at Raire. We say visual identity because there's so many things that encompass your visual identity that can be from physical applications to digital applications. So that's t-shirts to your website to your, physical business card, whatever that looks like, and your social media feed, right? Your aesthetic. We call it visual identity, but that's something that so many people, not even people, but every brand needs one. I think that whoever's running that brand, however small or big your team is, someone needs to understand what brand identity, visual identity really, really is. Mm-hmm. And the idea that it's just a logo, or that you need just a logo. If you are starting a business, and definitely the conversation is geared right now towards starters or beginners, novices, first timers. Mm-hmm. I want to be careful, but you don't just need a logo. You need an identity. You need a way to visually communicate on all types of touch points what your brand is, who you service, and you need to understand that you're creating something for them. Mm-hmm. You're creating something for the people who you're selling to. You're creating something for the people who you want to service. You're not creating something that just only you like. Well, my favorite color is red, so my brand color is going to be red.
I mean, it could be a part of your brand story,
your brand story, and then that's a whole nother level. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think the challenge for most people is getting into a spot where they can merge why the company exists and creating the right identity so that it helps people who are watching or who they want to get as customers, clients, whatever. Yeah. Make sure that they can kind of close the gap, right? Mm-hmm. And so your logo and your brand identity should be about that. If you're creating a steel company, right, you need to have a brand identity or an approach that would be amenable to people who buy steel.
Anybody buying steel?
I mean, it's another one of them bars, boy. Anybody
you just come up with your imagination is crazy.
I mean,
steel companies?
I was thinking about I literally was in my mind thinking about just texture. So I'm going, the difference between that and a cupcake company. Because that was going to be my comparison before you jumped the route.
Oh, that's cute.
But you would do very different things in order to communicate those things, because the buyer on the other side has a different temperament, and what you're selling has a different, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to figure out how to make sure that you are telling this right story, because those logos could not cross each other's paths, because they would never be in the same room together.
Yeah. One last point I want to make on brand identity right now is I feel a lot of people have an unawareness of how to manage their brand. Once you have a brand identity and once you have brand guidelines, a document that shares with you and your team how to use your brand assets, that's a whole nother thing. You want to be able to manage that. And I had mentioned a moment ago that no matter how small your team or how big your team is, brand management is so important. How do you use your logos? What's your brand voice? And from your emailer to how you present on a virtual presentation is everything is cohesive. Mm-hmm. And this is a word that all of us know what cohesive means. But as business owners, are we actually being cohesive? And it might take a little bit more time up front because you have to do it yourself. If you're a team of one or two, you don't have someone else that can do, you can just hand it off. And even if you had someone else to hand it off to, do you have a brand guide that's like, pink is our primary color, but this is how we use the pink. And this is the exact pink that we use. These are our fonts. That's one of my pet peeves, is people not using the fonts that were assigned to their brand identity. It is the biggest pet peeve. If you don't understand how to download and import the files, call me up. Like, let's do this thing, because the fonts are going to tell people that this is your brand. And so I'm just wrapping all of that up by saying the unawareness that sometimes I see people having, and you have a responsibility to your brand to manage it after you have it.
Mm-hmm.
Manage it long term, because building that foundation, you will not regret that.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned something about Tesla, or I saw a note about Tesla, which is, a major brand. I don't know if you were talking about something on the strategy side though.
Yeah, it was a combination of things. When I think about even Tesla, because I'm glad you even mentioned that. I think, I want to say something about what you just mentioned in terms of people adhering to the rules, guidelines, that kind of a thing. That's where your education is so important. You have to spend time, especially when you are the business owner. You have to figure out what each department does and why they, especially the ones who are in love with their jobs, in love with their career field, what things they prioritize and why. And just because you don't understand it because of the position that you're in doesn't mean that it's not critical, right? The better you understand the top 20% of like pet peeves of your brand manager, the better you're going to be able to perform for your brand manager.
So
if
glad.
You are the leader.
So glad you made that point.
Yeah.
Because I think on someone on the business side, so say there's this imaginary line right here and you're the business strategist and I am the brand manager and I'm managing all the assets, but you're creating the long-term strategy for why we even have assets for this brand and this business that, is a thing. But if you don't understand that I'm coming from a place where I want things to really look good and I want things to be just perfect and literally pixel perfect, and you're not just at least aware of that, and vice versa.
People
I'm not aware.
Off, yeah.
If I'm not aware as a designer or a social media content creator or manager, I'm not aware that, you have a bottom line. You have so much money to, invest or to allot to these certain departments, then it's just hard to have that relationship. And I think that's one thing that also sets our agency apart, is that we're really trying to, whoever we're working with, we want to be as locked arms with them as possible to understand what really matters to them, so we can just contribute to that and make things smooth for the other person. So yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up, because it can't just be like, I am the CEO of the company. I am not a creative person. I don't know how to do design.
Correct.
So I'm going to turn my back to my senior designer or my junior designer or whatever. And it's just like, just do it. And it's like,
deprioritize things that you don't get. And what that ultimately does is it removes the prospect of you building morale for these individual departments and these individual contributors. So you've hired, hopefully, high level talent, and you're undercutting the things that they love. So you don't even get the best results from them anymore if you continue down that path.
A character in a show that we watched that I feel like did that really well.
Who's that?
Corey from The Morning Show. The CEO of the...
Fantastic.
Yeah, the CEO of the network. If you're familiar with The Morning Show, the character Corey, I feel like, if you haven't watched that show, but this is the type of person that, archetype of person that we're talking about at the highest of the highest, understanding what every department is doing and knowing that, okay, they need you to show up for them in this way. And then this department over here needs you to show up for them in this way. And they're all working on different things, but they're all going to make the ship sail, It's a really good one. I think 2 books too, just to wrap that piece up, is The Brand Gap by Marty Neumer and Brand Thinking by Debbie Miller. So Marty Neumer is going to be the brand guy to go to read anything he's ever authored if you're wanting to catch up on brand. And on the other hand, Debbie Millman is going to walk you through, Debbie Millman is going to walk you through conversations that she has with the biggest CEOs from household companies that we all know. We're talking Dove, I guess Dove is owned by P&G, but whatever. Disney. She talks to people who are brand managers and CEOs of those companies and how they approach brand, even though that's not their main role. Yeah.
I think, just to jump right back into the Tesla note, Tesla has a very specific identity through and through. The strategy for the company was decided well before the identity and the look and the feel came, you don't design the shell of the car at the beginning. But that's the thing that misses most of the people who have the profile that I was talking about before. Like, they see the end. And the reality of how that company or companies like that come together is they decide this, like, directionally, what type of problem do you want to solve? And so they decided that they could figure out or solve the electric car market, right? That's the very, big. We think that this is the time where the electric car can be a real thing. We want to be first to it, and we want to make it an actual functioning high level business, right? Overall, Elon's mission is to shrink emissions and all of those different things, kind of go back to like a energy protection concept that got us or gets us away from like gas and, whatever. Mm-hmm. But they had to figure out how to create advantage for themselves, because at the end of the day, nobody had figured out how to take one to market. And there's always a reason for that. So the person who wins or figures out how to do it is the person who has the unfair advantage. The problem or the issue that everyone had was the battery and the battery life. Because none of us were going to buy the car regardless of what it looked like if it didn't have a certain amount of like runtime. And they even made that simple for us. Like they said, all right, you can go 300 miles. I think that was the first version. At any rate, they solved the battery problem through the lithium ion battery. Once they had that part figured out, then they could figure out how to like put it together, the look and the feel and all of the marketing. Mm-hmm. But if you don't have the other thing sorted, the other thing don't matter. And again, I just want to encourage people to like solve the big problem first. The reason you don't have Raire Goods in your hands is we have a couple more problems to solve on the business side of it. Yeah. To make sure that it's something that we can sustain and actually add really good value to people who are interested in having scents in their home.
I always say the creative can come. The creative will come. It can come. It will come. It'll present itself. When the student is ready, the teacher will present itself. Yeah. When the creative is ready, when the strategy is ready, the creative will present itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that.
If you're a musician, you don't shoot a video before you have a song.
That would be wild.
Yeah.
Well, what about a time where you were unprepared or an experience that you had when you didn't have a business strategy?
It's funny, because I've had a lot of fights about it.
You've been in fights?
Yeah.
Who you been fighting?
Everybody.
Okay. You tired?
Because in the organizations that I've been a part of, in the organizations I've been a part of, I've always had a strategy. And I think a large part of that is because I knew I could generate the creative. So maybe the people that I was partnering with and working with, like, they're looking at me as the person who can bring the creative. But I'm realizing that you don't have a strategy. In fact, I otherwise would be the flyer guy, at 22, 23 years old. Yeah. If the guys who I was working with understood how to build a strategy for the companies. They just didn't get it. And so I was able to put that together and then, build my skills over time. But at least since 2012, I've always had like clarity on where it's going. Now, I've been wrong sometimes about where it's going and what it'll take, but I was never void of some general compass, and real clarity about what I needed to do at least through the first 6 or 8, maybe 12 months before kicking something off.
Yeah, I had a realization similar to that with the brand identity, brand management side. And imagine going to Photoshop or Instagram or MailChimp template and trying to design something and there's not a brand identity. And so being unprepared as a person who has a brand or building a brand and who is running a business, who should already have strategy, and then you go on to make collateral and digital communications that are going to reach your audience, and you don't have a brand identity, you don't have assets, you're not able to tell the person that you hired to make, your emailer template or whatever that looks like. You're not even able to tell them, hey, this is our brand identity. This is how you use our logo. Here is our logo. This is what our color, our hex codes are. And there were times, a few years ago where I started to realize, I'm being asked to make a social media, rollout for someone or some graphics, and they don't have a brand identity. Yeah. So basically what I got to go do first is I got to go make them a brand identity.
I think that's become recent. I mean, I think there are people at a high level who've always known. I think the increase in number of entrepreneurs and like new business owners, like that has just continued to ramp up, or at least the pseudo business owners, like the personal brands have. Yeah. So I think there's just like, it's more competitive than it's ever been. There's more information available than it's ever been. But more importantly, when you are sourcing more professionals, more people got it together than there's ever been. Yeah. So when you don't, you stick out like a sore thumb and you become a frustrating client because you were one of those people who lagged behind in information before it was, your turn to go and hire somebody.
Yeah.
You just didn't have the knowledge that you should have had before you pulled that trigger. And I also say that and this is maybe more of like a hot take that I was thinking about, as you were sharing, even that part, like with the events that we started to do, very clear identities. So you don't necessarily have just a brand level identity. You'll have event level identities. Like you have all of these
product level.
You have all of these sub layers to how you communicate things that are possibly inside of your portfolio. And the more sophisticated your thinking starts to become and the clarity that you can generate by understanding the basics, you can be a much more clear marketer and more communicator of the things that you own or the things that you're trying to promote to the people that ultimately have to receive it. Because it's easy when it's always the same color over and over and over again, when it's always the same font over and over and over again, regardless of how you shift the message of whatever's underneath that. It's always a few point to so the people go, oh, it's from them.
The best compliment we've ever received is, oh, I knew that was y'all.
Yeah.
Because someone saw something somewhere and attributed the look and the feel and the fonts and the colors and the grain or whatever was going on in that image. And I was like, oh, I knew that was y'all. Mm-hmm. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole point, right? Mm-hmm. And you build momentum from that. So I think, underneath it ain't just about being creative. Like for just people who love business or into like wanting to make sure that they can add value to their own personal bottom lines by making more money. It's a part of it, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about a couple of our favorite brands.
Oh, yeah.
And people, or not people, I guess, but things that we are customers of. You saw my list? Long term. I saw your list. You're trying to outdo me a little bit, but
I'm glad
he saw my list first.
I did.
And he came with a list.
I did.
I'm like, bro, I wouldn't ask him for all that. Whatever. I maybe should go first since your list is, well, let's do one at a time.
Okay.
A recent brand that I just got put on to is Gainful. This is a wellness brand. Mm-hmm. They have protein powders, supplements. I'm not sure their actual descriptor, but let's just say wellness brand. It's called Gainful. We first saw this when we were in Target one time a few months ago, mm-hmm. and we were in the protein powder aisle and we went to go get some protein. I don't know what we were looking for or something. We get some healthy snacks when we're traveling, and we see this thing on the shelf and I'm immediately like, grab for it. Mm-hmm. And that's how I know that packaging is sweet. Oh. The packaging is so sweet.
Yeah.
And I'm just taking all of these notes in, and I'm even the way that the protein container, the texture of it, the way, it's this round, smooth texture, their logo, the fonts that they've used, their spacing, their colors, their negative, how they've decided to brand the rest of their supplements, because you have the main protein powder and then you have the flavors and things like that. So if you're into trying a new protein powder or whatever, or you just like to see wellness brands that are really killing it on the packaging side, you want to take some notes, Gainful would be great. I also have really liked I've since become a subscriber. So got the packaging or the protein from Target. Then I ended up ordering it online. I'm a subscriber now, so I'm going to get it every few weeks. It tastes amazing. So not only do I love when something has great packaging and packaging that I just want to hold, or I want it to be in my house and I'm proud of it, but when it's a great product and it also tastes very good. Go.
Yep. And how they went from that shelf experience to walking you through the substuffing, right?
And even the subscription, the emails, the information,
everything.
It's not stuff that I don't already know, because it's like,
it's what we do.
Take the protein an hour or two after you work out, or as a meal replacement. It's like, all of this stuff is basic knowledge, but the way they've laid it out really makes it comfortable for me to be like, this makes it feel like it's for me. And one thing that I did not share is that when you go on to subscribe, they'll walk you through this custom program, you'll take a quiz, and they'll send you a protein bag with your name on it. It's crazy. Gainful, I don't think y'all have a YouTube channel because I already hit y'all up, but I'm coming for you. But let's work. I don't say that often.
Yeah. No, very, really, really impressive. And it's a note to a very intentional customer journey. Well done.
Much appreciated.
How valuable is it when you waste time missing out on sealing a relationship with a lifetime customer? So we encourage people to do the opposite. Spend your time hugging and thanking and being supportive to everybody that buys something from you.
Very inspirational.
Yeah.
What's your first one that's gonna knock mine out the water?
I mean, the obvious, the GOAT, from a packaging standpoint, good old Apple. Just
on the electronic side though.
I mean, I don't care what if they were doing anything, it would be that. When you go to the web experience, the store experience, the invention of Genius Bar, the choices of paper inside of the packaging and the plastics that they use, the tightness of the actual box container. You open certain packaging and it's got 2 inches of cardboard to kind of cover space. Not an Apple box. The box is not an inch bigger than it needs to be. It's just
not a centimeter bigger than it needs to be.
That's so
detailed.
Yeah,
I think that what you admire is someone who went through, and the teams that went through great lengths to figure out, why does it need to be this way?
Yes. The pain of doing it right for the customer so that it's no pain for them.
Well, maybe not that it's the right way, because it's not necessarily the right way, but that this is going to be the Apple way.
Or the best way that they can possibly do it, because they're testing, right? They're just going, how do we make sure that this works for people? And they run the ideas through their gallows and come out with the best thing. I think at the end of the day, you can't really argue with minimalism. You can't really argue with the concepts of airtight photography and how they deliver on color. They're just so freaking good. And that ethos carries out to the applications, obviously.
Yeah. Speaking of photography, the next brand that's one of my favorites right now is the Open app. Open is a mindfulness studio that I came across during the pandemic, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So what I admire about what they do is they're obviously very in tune with who they're talking to, who they're after, who their community is. It's people who enjoy practicing yoga, breath work, meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that they launched somewhere around the pandemic. And I'm interested to go back and read this. I read a little bit about the founder and his story, but if they launched during the pandemic or if they were already going to be, you know, and then it just happened that the pandemic and they launched during it. And it's this massive app now. They do have locations, I think, in maybe Venice, California, maybe Santa Monica area, like that area, that LA/whatever area. And their app experience, their Instagram experience is so calming. And that's part of, like, how can you make someone feel calm through an Instagram post? It's the font choices that they've decided to use, the colors they've decided, and how they use their colors. And then the point of photography, how they capture their instructors that are the leaders of breath work around the world, yoga, meditation, and how they capture them for the app experience. So when you're in the app and I love their sleep meditations, and I'm going to pick whichever one I want to do. It's really easy to almost pick something based on the icon that they have that represents that class, or the photo that represents this category of meditations. So the open app, I will have my reference link in the show notes, but it's a beautiful app. The breath work too is, once you really start practicing that stuff, because it is a practice, you start to appreciate so much just a small breath of fresh air, you know, and I really like what they do.
All right. And we're still in the digital strategy. What is it? How did you have this kind of?
In no particular way.
All right. Well, on the same line that you have this, and it's going to make me sound nuts, but whatever, I'm hyped. From a digital strategy, like how they deliver on the internet, nobody is better than McDonald's. Like nobody. Like Nike is cool. Like, yeah. It's a lot of cool. But like engaging with humor, with releasing new products consistently, with their ambassador deals, with their online promotions to move to applications. I mean, people downloading the app, and they're just better than everybody. From their TikTok, how they utilize their YouTube, their Instagram, they're just crushing everybody. I know they got a lot of money, which people are like, well, they got a lot of money. It's a lot of brands that got a lot of money, and they ain't doing that.
Sure.
And they continue to stay incredibly connected with a young demo. Yeah. And they find a way to still remain connected to the people who grew up with them. So there's just nobody better than them.
They're cutting edge, their creativity. And I think about how challenging that is to be that big of a business, that big of just a global phenomenon. And it's so crazy to think about how challenging that still is at that level, to be that ahead of and you know, you're setting the tone, but it's hard, I'm sure. And what's your favorite thing at McDonald's?
What, on the brand piece?
What used to be in the restaurant? What used to be your favorite thing to eat there?
Man,
chicken nuggets.
I'm gonna have to give it to that double cheeseburger. It's something about, like, in my mind, my guess is that you have the exact same weight of patty between a double cheeseburger and a quarter pounder.
Yeah.
But that double cheeseburger tastes so much better. I don't know why.
Yeah. I'm a Big Mac girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You special sauce, huh?
Put the fries in the other side of the container and
you gotta
get it in.
Roll out. Yeah. Roscoe Jr.
The last brand on my side that I want to plug is Merrill. This is a restaurant in New Orleans. And I just got to give a nod to their in real life experience. From the service to the food to the atmosphere to the plateware, the whole nine. You know, I don't know, just the way that they present themselves as a restaurant. It's a restaurant group, but this particular restaurant just has a vibe. And I'm saying that your list totally kicks mine out the water, but Merrill is my favorite restaurant in New Orleans. And outside of New Orleans or inside of New Orleans, I have yet to be at a place that makes me feel the way that I feel when I'm in Merrill. And I don't know if it's because we've become regulars and we're friends with the management team, and you know, we know the management team, and that we just love anytime somebody's in town, we're going to Merrill. Like, we're like, we got to take them to Merrill. They have a tapas style menu where you just order a lot of everything, you taste a lot of everything. Their price points are great for the quality of food that you get. They always have a weekly menu that's changing. And I'm always excited to, when we do decide to go to Merrill, I'm excited to look at what's on their weekly menu, even if I'm going to get the same stuff that I always get off of the regular menu. Their cocktail program is great. I just think that they are just 10s across the board. I've never been in the back of the kitchen. We were talking about that the last time we were there, how it's probably crazy back there. But it's just an amazing experience. And if you haven't ever been to Merrill before, or you're visiting New Orleans, that's definitely number one. Just go visit, go have a drink or whatever, you know, if you got time for it, sit down for a meal.
Well, my last ad, and there are better hotels probably, but my personal favorite place to be in the country is Conrad, LA. You know, I feel like people are discovering it a bit more, you know, over time, but we were there when they fundamentally first opened, and I feel like the design choices, the staff and service team is just top notch. Now, I don't always eat on property, but if I do decide to eat, the breakfast menu is solid. You know, the in-room dining is really solid. The decor choices are solid. And unlike, I mentioned, like, there are other options, like we also love like Edition, but it's turned up. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, just something that's a little bit more subdued.
The room at Edition, when we went to the one in Tampa, had just opened. The room in there was insane.
I mean, it's definitely, Edition probably is the best room in the country right now. I mean, maybe, you know, there are some Four Seasons that have some, but I don't necessarily love the decor of the Four Seasons. It's more traditional compared to, but either way it goes. And no, I mean, I love, but comparatively, the preference
how
would
bougie
be.
Is that? That's why he tried to look down on my cookie earlier.
I mean, I had
anyways,
a bad joke, but yeah, that would be my one. The way that they deliver across the board, like from brand to experience.
Well, we fanned out a little bit. We also gave y'all some insight on how to think about business strategy and brand identity, what you need to figure out first, when the creative will come, things that you should be aware of when you're working with teams and creative people or vice versa. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. Enjoy the rest of the holiday break if you have one, and get back to work if you do not have one. But thank you for watching. We'll see you next week. And like, comment, subscribe, all of the things, and stay sharp.
Stay sharp.
Later, y'all.